right. Welcome everybody to the Pig Show. It is, of course, the episode that we've all been waiting for a while, which is me actually getting off my ass and starting the show up again. I am very excited. Joining me today, of course, is Serral, the champ, the Finnish phenom. He's woken up nice and early there in Finland to join us. So thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's always nice to talk some.
Yeah.
Honestly, my English is getting a bit rusty when there's no intros or anything, so it's good to refresh it a bit.
You're not getting to do some verbal jousting with Smix anymore. No on-stage interviews.
No, not enough.
What's the isolation life like for you at the moment? Are you seeing any of your friends? Is Finland like pretty okay, or is it very restricted? You can't leave your house.
It was pretty restricted for a moment, but I mean it's just recommended to not go, not really go to any meetings or see too many people. So for me, I'm just staying at home personally, not doing too much. But at the same time, it's not changing too much from my normal stuff at the same time. I guess that's kind of what I do anyway. So I don't know. It didn't change too much on me, but yeah.
What's the I do actually wonder, because like for me recently, I've noticed more players seem to be staying up to crazy hours. Like I'm talking to people who are staying up to the middle of the night. We've got more and more players from like Russia staying up till 5 a.m. to play American EPT each week. You've said in the past, you're like, I'm not going to stay up that late and screw up my whole sleep schedule for an online cup. What's your schedule like? Do you normally go to sleep like pretty early? Are you up to like 2 a.m.? How degen are you?
Well, I try to maintain a sleep schedule of like I go sleep at around 11 normally, and try to wake up between 8 and 9. But sometimes for example, yesterday I stayed up until 12, so between 12 and 11 I normally go to sleep. So not too late, but not too early either.
What's the like off time for you? Do you play other games at the moment? Dota, CS? Like what's your free social time kind of playing at the moment?
Well, I actually played some Escape from Tarkov lately a bit.
That's a sick game. I've only played that once. I played a bunch with Tenchi a few weeks back. That's actually a cool game, man.
Yeah, it's quite fun. I also played some. Well, most people know that I played some PUBG before, but I haven't played that in a while because it's so badly optimized. You actually can't play the game at all.
Really, it's just like lagging and stuff and like glitching out.
It's lagging way too much. It's absolutely horrific.
You're not into Fortnite, man. You're not into the kiddie games.
I mean, I tried it, but it wasn't for me.
Not hardcore enough. That's cool, actually. I mean, I wanted to kind of set the stage a bit, and kind of go back a little bit. So you're born, because you're what, 21 now, right? You were born in
22, actually.
22. So you were born in 98, kind of the year StarCraft 2 came out, right?
Yeah.
What was your favorite games growing up? Because I'm always fascinated. Like for me, I grew up playing like Command and Conquer and Warcraft 2 and this sort of stuff. Like, was it straight into StarCraft, or were you like obsessed with Dota, Counter-Strike? Like, what did you get into from a young age?
I wasn't really obsessed with anything, but I played many console games when I was younger, like Halo and that kind of stuff. Because most of the things I spent most of the time with those games. And I picked up Root 4 at maybe like 2009. And yeah, that was from my first RTS experience. And kind of stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, you would have been like 10, 11 years old, right? And you played Brood War for like a year, I guess, then? A year and a half or so before StarCraft 2 came out?
More of the arcade stuff, but anyways. Like
Tower,
Cat and Mouse
Tower
and
D.
that kind of stuff.
Oh,
there was
nice.
a game called Cat and Mouse. It was very fun.
What sort of I never actually played that one. I played a ton of like tower defense and warlocks and stuff. Was it like a hero game, kind of MOBA-ish, or?
No, I mean there was just an Ultralisk, and then there were robots running away, and you could build pylons and stuff to block it away, and then you try to kill the Ultra.
Oh my god.
That had like a lot of HP. I mean there's similar games in SC2 as well.
I'm sure there is.
I never played those. Never played those.
There's got to be an arcade stream one day where Serral plays arcade with like a bunch of lucky people, and you guys play the old school custom games. Man, get in there. You get to be the Ultralisk, of course, and hunt people down. Uh,
Yeah, that wasn't actually the fun part. I think the fun part was actually running away, but
yeah. Well, I mean, otherwise you're literally the guy who's just chasing everyone who gets to work together, right?
yeah,
So you kind of got into it then. Obviously, you've been playing SE2 forever now, and I remember way back when you were kind of a good GM player, but you weren't as well known for quite a few years there. So what was the kind of like process of kind of starting to fall into getting obsessed with SE2? Obviously, your older brother was a big influence, right? Like I imagine he was probably more hardcore into it first when he was competing, and you kind of just followed in his footsteps at first.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, I wanted to improve from the very start already because I mean, I didn't start at like very low rating, obviously, because I had some brute for experience. I think I got was diamond when I started, so I already wanted to have improvement at that point, and I wasn't really just playing for one fun. But obviously, I think if my brother wouldn't have played, I probably wouldn't have played either. So he was a big he was inspiring me a lot, and yeah, I would say the first big thing for me in SC2 was when I got my first team. It's actually a tournament and the prize was to get the team. So I won that, and that was like the first bigger thing to me. And then I think a couple of Finnish lands after that and that kind of stuff.
That's like a really special moment, right? At that point, because you're probably still not really thinking of pro gaming as a career, but then you start to just get more into it, play a bit more seriously, and then when you start to actually get on
Yeah,
a team and win a tournament, that's like a it's hard to remember
yeah,
because it's a long time ago, but that's an amazing
yeah,
feeling.
yeah. Well, teams back then versus more of a clan kind of thing, but whatever. Still nice to carry some kind of name in the front of your own nickname.
It was I mean it was a lot about the credibility, right? Like if you had a clan that was well respected or a team that was well respected, it was really cool. Like you'd feel a lot of pride.
Yeah,
I remember even in the old Warcraft 3 days, you didn't even need to be very good, and you would get followers who would kind of follow you around BattleNet and like ask you for games and ask just because you were in a clan that was like kind of good. People would be like, "Oh, can you teach me how to play?" and stuff like. There's this weird. It was so small back then. There was all this like internet credibility, and everything was kind of like no Twitch streaming or anything until StarCraft 2 came out. So obviously that's what kind of exploded, but it was pretty shitty in the early days. Were you watching the old like 360 pixel GSL on the GOM TV player back in the day?
mm, I mean, I was watching, but I actually don't have too good memories of, or like too many memories of it. But I mean, I was watching a lot of StarCraft 2 back then. Actually, I guess we were watching with my brother, so I don't know. I was just kind of watching the games. I wasn't thinking what tournaments was or anything. Just kind of watching the games always.
Was there any point where you learned a lot from like listening to commentary at all, or was it kind of just more picking stuff up playing with your brother? Did you guys talk about the game? Would you like theory craft together at all? Talk about strategies?
Actually, not too much. We we actually never talked about StarCraft too much, honestly. Just
Yeah.
we kind of both played our own game and went our own ways in that way. But yeah, we never even practiced against each other pretty much. I don't
Hmm.
know. We didn't do much together when it came to StarCraft 2. But
You never had like a like you'd occasionally play and then you like he'd always kick your ass, but
no,
you eventually beat him,
no,
and then
no,
he
no,
got to be really sad because he's the big brother and he's meant to beat you up.
no. I don't think he would get sad if he beat me a couple of times. But yeah, no, it didn't happen really. I don't think I played him extremely rarely, and so most of those were just tournament games.
That's cool. It's interesting because I think sometimes we talk about how like a lot of the time it's a player who has an older brother who they learn together, but also the older brother kicks their ass at the game a bunch. That makes them get better. Like I think of like Day 9 with Tasteless cheesing his ass since he's a little kid, and him like being like, "Man, I'm gonna learn how to play this game really well." And I think there's something with like the Korean team house aspect, right, where you have lots of people just living the game and watching each other and picking up strategies and stuff. Where a lot of people found it easier to learn the game that way, but despite, I mean, you grew up obviously gaming quite a lot with your brother, but it seems like a lot of it otherwise was self-taught and you kind of learned on your own. Did you ever have a mentor or like someone who taught you when you were a newer player, or maybe a practice partner where you've just practiced a lot over the years and you've both learnt a lot from each other?
Mm, not really. I wouldn't say so. I had well, Elf was actually he was my mentor for a moment, but it didn't last very long. He was actually helping me and watching my game when I was first time in ence back in like 2014. We had kind of system that Elf was teaching me every once in a while. That was kind of part of the deal. So yeah, he taught me a little bit, but otherwise, not really any mentors. And I started with ladder mostly for most of my years. I think I picked up custom games pretty late, so I didn't really have any big practice partners after.
Interesting. So these days, do you practice a lot with people specifically? Like, is there any one or two people you go to that you can trust to hide builds, or do you kind of just play the field, message a whole bunch of the top players and practice when you need to, or are you someone who really likes to just keep your secrets?
Uh, Actually, I kind of like to keep my secrets. I only practice my special abilities AIs, pretty much. So sometimes they look very bad in actual games because there's very little actual games of them. There's a couple of people who I trust, so if I have some builds, I might practice them. But a lot of the time, I a lot of the time I just practice like maybe one time, like a very special filter or something, and then I don't practice at all against human players. So not too much. I like to keep my secrets, but overall, I like to maintain a very overall practice system. I like to practice against a lot of people, and I kind of personally I think ladder is the better way to practice than a custom game. I feel like I get a lot of more approaches on ladder, but
Yeah,
at the same time, nowadays I'm struggling to find games on ladder, so I kind of prefer custom games just so that I actually get more games in a row.
I'll never
But if
forget
I
what
would if I
the
would find like a game in one minute, every time I would go for a ladder game, I would probably always ladder. I think it's pretty useful.
yeah. Sometimes you're waiting for a long time. I always think of Marine Lord posting the screenshot of you getting like two MMR from beating him, and then
Yeah,
TLO responded with a screenshot of him beating me and getting the same MMR, and he's like, "Oh, so we're just commentators compared to Serral. Oh, okay, this is great." Um, I think maybe it was Uthermal the other day who posted a screenshot of you searching for game for an hour on the ladder as well, where you, I don't know,
well,
you,
that was a long time
it
ago.
was a while back. Were you actually
I mean,
queued for an hour?
it was a meme. Yeah. That didn't actually happen.
I wish it happened. I
I
was
uh,
like, I know this is a joke, but I really hope this happened.
I only go for 2 minutes, then I research.
Mm.
This way, I don't get anyone below 6-4.
Oh, okay, cool. Because it expands the boundary the longer you
Yeah,
search, and it'll be like,
yeah,
hey, do you want to play a 5'8" player? And you're like, oh god. Um,
yeah. I think playing against people where there's too much of a skill gap, I feel like it can be even negative practice just because you can pick up bad habits from it.
yeah, it's like every punch just lands, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, oh, that worked, cool, and then you're like, yeah, that's not going to
Yeah.
work for someone who's a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. Speaking of speed, actually, in the game, so that's something. I mean, you mentioned you practice quite a bit against AI and kind of map out your builds. Um, but you do actually like playing the ladder. I mean, how much actual gameplay would you say you play? Like today, have you touched the ladder yet this morning? Or once we're done, are you gonna hop on and practice? What's the daily routine look like? How many
Well,
hours of ladder? 12, 16, 2?
well, I don't ladder at all, but basically now.
Yeah.
Basically, my main account's all the ladder games I have, and it's like 50 ladder games this season. So I ladder very little, just because, like I said, I can't really find people to play, and every time I find someone, it's a freaking streamer, and I really dislike playing streamers.
Just because
But
everyone can see what's happening, or also just because everyone's talking about it?
I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of dislike it for some reason. it makes it a bit more. It gives me a bit more pressure, I would say, even though the game should be kind of meaningless and just a practice game. But what I do normally, right now I'm probably playing like 20 games a day, and around that probably. I try to get like at least 3 people to play customs with me and maybe play some larger on top of it.
You sometimes play very long games, especially in the past. So 20 games, I mean, that could be a pretty big range of time. Are we thinking probably about 5-6 hours of playtime a day?
Yeah, 5-6 hours is that's my normal interview answer.
All
Five
right.
six hours,
So
but
if
it depends a bit. Sometimes I go away 3 hours, sometimes 8 hours, depending a bit on how I'm feeling. I like to go on based on feeling a lot.
okay, cool. I think that's like actually a really good amount. If you look at a lot of pro athletes in different sports, obviously they've got to deal with muscle recovery. But I think like in terms of the mental amount, it's actually a lot. So that's actual playtime. Does that include watching replays and that sort of thing, or is that on top of that?
Mm, I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
Probably includes replays, I would say. But at the same time, I don't really watch too many replays.
Yeah. You feel like do you often use the rewind function, or you feel like you've got a very good idea of what happened at the end of a game?
Yeah, I think I have a pretty good idea most of the times. A lot of the time, I feel like it's very obvious mistakes and that kind of stuff. So
When do
I
you
mainly
open a
go to
replay then? Is it when you're
yeah,
confused?
I mainly open a replay when it's something new and I want to find just a good response for something, or yeah, I'm confused or something. But if it's a normal game, which I feel like most of the games are, I most of the time just know what's going wrong or what's going well.
That's an interesting skill that people grow over time. So I think a lot of newer players don't have the same game sense, right? But if you've been very methodical and you've mapped out all of your responses over the years, and there's a lot of repeat games in StarCraft too, right? Like especially sometimes the meta comes around where it's like the exact same meta from 2 years ago, almost essentially. So you can use the same responses. You're like pulling out the same reactions, and it's more about the execution and the feeling and just putting it into action in the game, right? So it's more
Yeah,
about just play another game, fix that, and you know it'll work if you can just repeat it properly.
yeah, pretty much.
So outside of breaking down, okay, there's a new pressure, a new build, something you got to react to. You got to go into the replay, come up with a response. Other than that, how do you? I mean, obviously, you try not to show too many builds. We know that, right? Because you're not playing $100 weekly cup every day. You're not trying to show all your builds constantly, streaming and this sort of stuff. I mean,
Well, I mean, I could play those with my standard build as well, but it's more mainly, honestly, I'm just mainly, I don't feel the need to play in it, and I would kind of just do it for practice, and I feel like I would rather play just a ladder game or custom games instead of that as a practice.
is
And
it the
also, a lot of the time the tournament goes very late, so that's also one reason.
there's also a lot of downtime, right? Like if especially if it's an upper
Yeah.
and lower bracket, there's lots of time setting up matches, waiting for opponents. So compared to custom games, I'd say you could get two, sometimes 2.5 times as many games in playing custom games compared to playing a tournament. I feel like
Yeah.
10 games in a tournament day can take all day sometimes, whereas you could play 30 games in the same time if you're custom spamming with a practice partner.
Yeah, but at the same time, when online tournaments are going, it's also hard to find practice partners. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of don't like the internet tournaments too much. But I try to play some, at least now that there's no offline stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you looked very good at the Stay at Home Story Cup. Obviously, I imagine you wouldn't be a big fan of playing cross server, right? Is that just a no go for you unless it's a big tournament like Stay at Home Story Cup?
Yeah, not a big fan. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's like the ping isn't even that bad. It's just like everything feels very uncomfortable. Nothing feels really. It's the game's just not fun to play when there's ping when you're used to no ping. So
Yeah.
not really a big fan of cross server.
It's almost like you're playing a different game, right? So much of StarCraft is muscle memory. It's you doing things you've trained to do a certain way, and everything you do changes when you add 200 milliseconds, 150 milliseconds ping, right? It's a
Yeah.
different level of muscle memory. So it almost disturbs your own mechanical habits as well, because it's like, oh, there's an oracle coming in. Normally I would micro like this, but it's a completely different like timing to how you would start a step a queen towards an oracle or something like that when you're
Yeah.
doing it with ping. And if that kind of wires get crossed in your brain, it actually screws up your ability to micro. So I really respect when players do. I respect when players put themselves out there and try to learn how to play with lag and on zero ping at the same time. But I know like there's a lot of players who just refuse to do it. Like Maru will not play cross server, will not play online tournaments across. A bunch of other players won't, because they just feel it's too uncomfortable. Even though Uthermal does it a lot, I always look forward to his Twitter when he gets eliminated going, God damn, I hate playing with ping. It sucks. It's so bad. I got hit by I lost 30 Marines to Banelings. Just because I couldn't micro. So that's obviously a big frustrating thing, I think, for a lot of players. But
Yeah.
I think kind of mindset wise, you say you practice your builds out. I want to kind of go a bit deeper on that process of you playing against AI. So we're looking at a matchup, right? You're playing ZVP. You're practicing out a build. Are you focused more these days on trying to come up with a solid way of playing and reacting to your opponent, would you say? Or do you think you're more looking for ways to finish the game? Because I feel like you have gotten a bit more aggressive over the years.
I'm still I would say I still play very defensive and just kind of go for the late game. But I think what I've tried to do lately, especially in CVP, I have tried to look for more openings and look for more opportunities to actually just bounce on and kill them. I think Eraser actually, I was out of his CVP and he just kind of killed them randomly at mid game, so that gave me a lot of confidence of just trying to do similar stuff while going to fast hive and just looking for opportunities. So I know I would say I've gotten a bit more aggressive, but I still prefer just a very passive into late game kind of style.
Well, that's a problem though, right? Because you're responsible for some bad things happening to Zerg, Serral. I've been whining a bit about Zerg recently. I'll own up to it, but you've gotten a few things nerfed, buddy.
Have I?
Yeah. Tunneling Claw Roaches was the first one. That was
no,
because of crimes.
That was nude. That was nude. 100% nude.
No, that was you, dude. Crimes against your own race. No one could beat you in Tunneling Claw versus Tunneling Claw, Zerg versus Zerg. Like that period of ZVZ, your roaches were disgusting. They would not die.
Not sure about that.
I put that at your feet. The Tunneling Claw. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm not sure when it was. Maybe 1 year ago.
No, that was maybe 2 years ago already.
2 years ago now.
It's a pretty old thing already.
It was after you won the world championship, though, I believe.
Was it?
I think it was just. I think it was the patch after that. I think.
Because I think it was during Acropolis time.
Maybe it was during that. Maybe it was the middle of that year then. But they basically made the regen half speed because the roaches just would not die. And specifically, like looking at how you played like ZVZ back then, you were your first person view. I always loved watching because you would basically have an army at the front and you'd always have 2 to 3 squads of roaches. And I could tell you'd practiced it so many times because every Zerg vs. Zerg was roach versus roach at the time. No one was playing mutas very much. And all you were doing was running roaches in circles around the main and the natural. And you'd try to pull a lot of units there and your army would just be running back and forwards on the front at the same time. And you would just do this for like 8 minutes straight until they screwed up and sent too many roaches somewhere and your army at the front would land biles or your burrowed roaches would pop up. And it was this funny thing because there's certain things when I see a player just play very skillfully. You know, I see like Maru focus firing Banelings with Marines and like pick up at the last second. I go, shit, that's good. And it was one of those things where I felt like you were skipping between the 3 control groups so quickly. Your ability to tell when it was a good fight and when it was a bad was very quick. And I felt like this was something you'd trained to a very high level, was your ability to go, okay, these roaches just need to run. These roaches need to engage. And I think that's one of your big skills as a player is your ability to just very quickly judge when to engage and when to pull back. And you're very good at pulling back and waiting for the right fight, but you're very good at jumping forward and taking a very decisive engagement when you need to. Is that something you identify with at all? Did you train to try to develop that skill?
Well, not specifically. I didn't train it. I think that kind of stuff comes all naturally. But I do think I'm very good at judging fights, especially. Well, it's easiest to judge fights when it's road versus. Well, it's in CVC. It's easiest to judge fights, and I think I'm pretty good at road to amateur judgments, especially. But well, I don't. It's not very complicated. You see, you have more, you go for it, and if you're less, you don't go for it.
It's like that's it. In my mind, it is very simple, but it's just the speed you would flick. Whenever I see a first person cam managing that sort of situation, the speed you flick between all three of them and are giving orders, I'm like, man, how do you even see what's going on the screen? Like, I feel like such an old man when I look at that shit. I'm like, God damn it, dude.
Yeah. But furrowed roaches are always, you always shift click them a bit around. There's not too much thinking going into those guys, honestly.
Yeah.
Just kind of, sometimes you just kind of need to check on them consistently enough that they're not going to die that you're not going to unburrow them on like a couple of roaches. That's basically what you have to do. You just have to constantly check on them and then shift click them again if there's something bad happening.
It's I think it's a big StarCraft skill in general is obviously judging fights, right? Pulling back at the right time, going in at the right time. I think it's really cool. I actually have another build, a game just popped into my head. I don't know if you remember. I think it was maybe GSL vs. the World, the first one you won. Do you remember playing stats on 16-bit and doing the worst CVP build of all time, 2-base Roach?
No, that was a Sugelian build.
This is the worst build of all time. I don't know. Everyone was doing it.
The +1 Roach.
It's such a bad opening.
The +1 Roach?
Yeah, it's bad.
Are you talking about the game where I went, like the Muta switch later on?
Yeah, you went Roach Hydra, I think it was, and you were like fighting in like multiple areas for like 15 minutes, and you kept picking off immortals, and like then you swapped into mutas, and you almost won, despite being so far behind for the entire game because your opening was so bad, and it was like both very good multitasking and a terrible opening.
So this build was like it was a Sugelian build first off, so no blame on me. But this build, the plan was to hit a fast +2 timing.
Really?
Roach Hydra. That was the plan. 66 drones plus. I can't remember if it was a Doom drop or something. But the plan was to hit a +2 timing quickly with a Roach Hydra and kill the brothers with that. I can't remember how well I did it in practice, but I decided to do it in a tournament game.
It didn't go very well. It was really impressive because you kept attacking from two sides, and every time you had like a little squad of Roach Hydra, and he had like a pack of immortals and charge zealots, and I was like, his army beats your army, and you'd just be kind of like stutter stepping away and picking off a zealot and running away and running back in. I just remember this game because I was like, you're fighting your heart out, but you're in such a bad position, man.
Yeah, I didn't do a build ever again after that game, so it wasn't a very good build. I agree.
It was my pet peeve. Yeah,
I gave it a shot.
A lot of other Zergs loved that build. Top level Zergs, Rogue, Dark, they were all doing this build around that time. They were doing it not into the Roach Hydra, but they were doing 2-base Roach into like Swarm Host, 2-base Roach into Mutas. There was a bunch of 2-base Roach openings that kind of went around.
I can't remember. I remember Dark doing it a couple of times. I remember especially doing it with Neep and Neep getting super scared. I was thinking it's like a Bailing Buster or something, and like on Evertream or something, like a super weird game. And then I remember the 2-base Farmhouse build, but I actually can't remember any +1 Roach openings.
Yeah, maybe not +1 Roach, but a lot of Roach speed. There was a bunch of Roach speed openings. Maybe. Yeah, it's just kind of funny because I think of that as another example of you jumping around and judging fights very well. And that's why I think of that as being one of your skills, which has allowed you to kind of make a lot of comebacks in your career. I think one of my favorite things when I get to watch your matches is when you make some mistakes and you do fall behind and you start to fight really hard, like, just micro in as many places at once and really try to hang on because you've survived some really bad situations against like really top level players like Raynor and so on, where you're way behind for a long time. And I always love when the camera shot comes to you at the end of the game because you make this impossible comeback, but you have this like a little bit of anger on your face because like you're like, oh my god, like I don't know, there's kind of frustration seething inside you.
Well, he probably gambled. If someone gambles, I get extremely triggered.
That's
I'm not
the
a fan
Serral
of
trigger point.
gambling. Yeah, I'm not no gambling.
This is so it must have been a lot of fun for the last 2 years playing Zerg vs Zerg, where everyone gambles against you every game.
Yeah, well, not well. I don't feel well. It's only realistically going mutas, and that's not even that gambly anymore. There's not honestly.
That's true. A lot of
I
the
guess
plus
I
one
don't think
melee
that.
builds though, like Scarlet would always do these cheeky plus one melee like before Ling speed and stuff.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know. They're kind of just. I guess they're a bit. They're just more of an random builds and gambly builds, but it's not
what
the same thing.
what's like the most triggered you've been in a match that you can remember where someone just took like a really silly coin toss gamble and it worked for them?
Uh, I can't remember, but WCS Winter last game against Rainer, he did this +1 melee mass links on new repugnancy. It was like the dumbest build I've ever seen. I mean, it wasn't really a gamble even, but it was just an awful build, and I lost.
It was one of the worst optimized tournament winning builds I've ever seen in my life. Your units got shoved out of the wall. You didn't get on hold position in time, and his Zerglings pushed all your units out of the wall, and the flood got in. That was I was actually triggered for you watching that game. I was like, oh, I can't believe this one. I was very
He
happy
did
for Raynor, but
he did actually again as well. It was on sleepers one time. I can't remember what term it was, but
did it
it
work the
was on
second time?
sleepers. It was extremely close. I think he slipped past again, but
Oh
it
my
didn't work
god.
this time. I mean, he went through like the back minerals and sleepers.
Yeah, of
It was a
course.
bit different. It was a bit smarter build, but I mean, I scouted it instantly because I smelt the monkey build instantly.
It's kind of funny. So obviously that's a pretty crazy build that he was going for. Has there
Yeah.
been is he the number one who's gotten these? Has there been rivals maybe even earlier in your career when you weren't as well known, where there was like a certain cheesy Protoss or a Terran player who would always beat you and just kick your ass?
Mm, not really. No, I wouldn't say so. And well, I hate saying Raynor's cheesy because he's actually very solid with macro nowadays. But back then, 2018 and and I started 2019, he was extremely cheesy. Right now, he's very good at everything.
Yeah, he was a bit more of a cheeky boy back then. Still, obviously, he's still got that flair to his play, but
Yeah,
there was a few more coin flips in his build orders, a lot of big risks that he was taking. He's definitely worked on kind of stabilizing his whole game.
yeah.
Do you ever feel like you should be more of a wild man, more of a cheesy guy, just to make it hard for your opponents?
I mean, I have tried to add more cheesy builds, but I feel like they would give me a worse chance to win a game than just playing a standard game. So I'm not. I would say I'm not. I don't want to use them too much, but I'm willing to use them every once in a while.
Yeah,
Also, I don't think Turk has too many good cheeses. Honestly, most of them are very. They either the opponent either that it only works. Most of Turk's cheeses only work if the opponent doesn't scout, or then they do some big mistakes. I feel like.
yeah.
So it's a
I can't think of your. I've seen you use a few, but I feel like you don't have a very good success rate when you do try to pull out a cheesy build. It doesn't seem to
no,
work much for you.
no, not really. No, I like to. Well, I've lately done some nice two-base openings instead to just to try to get the game a bit more confusing, but still kind of get into a similar spot with game-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely enjoyed some of your like Queen Ravager timings and stuff like that, which you would pull out at some tournaments over the last. Well, actually, I'm thinking a couple years ago. Actually, I'm thinking like 2 years ago, you would against Terran, you were pulling some out versus the Banshee openings and that sort of stuff, to just get some easy tournament wins, and it was nice to see you just bopping some people, just finishing a best of five with a quick game, not taking too long. But when you've gone very cheesy, like I think of the map versus Rogue, and this is still my most jaw dropping moment watching you play, because I couldn't believe when you played Rogue in the semis, you did what I call it the dumbass build, because it's so stupid. It's the bloody 14 hatch, 15 hatch, whatever it is, Speedling Flood, and you did it on that gigantic map. What's it?
Well, you need to do it on a big map because the otherwise they're gonna see the creep difference.
That map's too big though. I think that map was like a bit too long rally distance to get over
That's
there.
possible. I mean, that's kind of what happened, wasn't it? I mean, anyways, that game has a very dumb story because I actually practiced with Elaser before that match. Can't remember if it was the previous day or the same day, but anyways, and we played on Everstream. It's a very small map, obviously, and he forgot to make Overlord, so he went 14 hats on this build, and I decided to do it in the tournament game. Just because he forgot to make an Overlord and went 14 actually at this build.
Just a classic.
That's the only reason.
Hatch. Oh my lord! So this was.
I did, yeah.
I mean, that was of course WCS Global Finals 2018. That was the one you won in the semifinals for anyone watching, and yeah, it was like 14 hatch, 13 gas, 12 pool, or 15, 14, 13, something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was something more like a lot of gas tricks involved.
Yeah, maybe a 16, 15, 14 then, double gas trick, something like that.
I can't remember exactly.
Parasite was the map. Thank you, Twitch chat, for that one. But I remember what was so funny is I was like, the reason I hate that build is because it was so common for a while, and it's like, even if the other player doesn't see it, if they just quickly pull to their ramp, they can still hold it, like, even with no warning. And Rogue literally was chasing your Overlord with a Queen, got one of his Queens surrounded on the map. You got a bunch of Zerglings, and you still couldn't win. And I was like, this build just sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it sucked very bad, I agree. But I shouldn't have killed the Queen. I should have just went past.
Just run past, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent too much time with the Queen. That was the problem. I think if I played the build properly, I could have won that game.
Yeah, well, it was the perfect setup. He had no idea it was coming until your Zerglings hit the Queen. He had no idea till like that moment, basically.
Yeah.
So you hit it really well. Yeah, I remember just being so surprised you did that. And that ended up being the only map he took it off you in that semi-finals. I remember that was a pretty epic series. And then, of course, you did end up winning against Stats in the grand finals 4-2 there. Is that the biggest victory in your mind? Is that the crowning achievement that you feel proudest of that tournament? Or is there maybe another series or another tournament that you feel personally was just as important because you had to overcome like the obstacle?
Well, tournament-wise, I don't think there was. But obviously, if you're talking about series-wise, I think that the Stats finals was very bad series, honestly. It wasn't a very good series. I think it was pretty low skill, honestly.
The grand final specifically, right?
Yeah, I actually think Stats. Well, I heard that Stats actually didn't practice any PvC because he literally had no certs in his way, so it was kind of coming in with pretty bad PvC into that final, and I wasn't even playing too good, so I think it was kind of Shiba final, honestly. Wasn't the best ever. It's not like the most memorable series for me.
Yeah.
Not even close, but. I don't know. I think a couple of TSL versus the Bird series were pretty memorable for me, and also I think that's very close to the global finals as a championship as well, but not quite as meaningful. Not quite as meaningful still.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like a whole journey of a tournament as well. Anyway, so obviously, I mean, there's so many different matches, and sometimes it's like qualifier round 2 against someone where you actually have the closest match of the tournament for you, and it's like back and forth, and it's actually really good strategy on both sides, and you're like, whoa, that was actually an incredible game. Sometimes the grand finals is a bust, but nonetheless, I think you smashed a pretty damn hard bracket. And I remember that semis as well against Rogue, especially being a really good match where he kind of put a lot of pressure on you. I remember seeing you sweating with the camera zoom in after the Lost and
I
Found
mean, it was
game.
extremely hot there.
Yeah, it was the studio lights
Anyone,
and stuff, right? And the big audience kind of packed into the arena.
yeah, it was it was very hot, very hot.
Well, it added a lot of drama. I think he was making you multitask like a crazy person. He was dropping lurkers in bases, knighting lurkers, running tunneling claw roaches around. You had to defend 5 bases at once. It was
Yeah,
it
the last
definitely
game was
added yeah.
yeah, it was a very nice game. Felt like felt like he was on some parts he was playing it actually better than me, but he was just kind of failing out the fight.
Hmm. Well, I mean, your Vipers have been the big thing, which I think your Viper usage is the thing which everyone was afraid of for a while there because you were just more patient and better at taking good fights in late game. A lot of people would throw their Vipers away, but your Vipers are very cost efficient in late game Zerg versus Zerg. So
Yeah,
I feel like he was, funnily enough, Rogue was the guy who I think brought late game to Zerg in Korea in a way where he played a more macro focus, bigger late game style, smarter late game style than most other Koreans. And I think you just had like an extra 5 or 10% understanding of that late game against him and against most players. Whereas nowadays, I feel like everyone has gotten so much better with their Viper control and their like late game. We see a lot of Lurker Viper across the whole player base, whereas it used to be kind of your specialty for a while there, was pushing it to that late game stage and then just grinding your opponent down through very efficient fights.
yeah. I think well, most people are pretty good at it right now. I think some people aren't very good at it yet, but a lot of people got improvements just because a lot of the games were forced to that point. Because I mean, you can't really, if it's gonna be a Roach versus Roach game, and both played well, it's always gonna go at that point pretty much. So it's just kind of you're kind of forced to practice it if people are willing to play late game against you.
Yeah. Speaking of late game, so no infested Terrans. Broodlords have two less effective range now. How are we looking in late game? Is it still something you're
Mm.
confident in? I mean, it's some big changes.
Uh, it's well, to be honest, at the end of when the infested Terrans were still in the game, I was already playing Corruptor Viper, the late game you're playing right now, because I thought it was more, you could do more plays with it. I know
Mm.
Infestor late game always took 2 hours, so I was already playing it at the end of the Infested Terran era, a different late game. So it wasn't a big deal, and I don't think the Fruit Lord's French nerf changed too much in CVP wise. So CVP, I mean CVP late game is completely fine still. Like it's probably favored a little bit
Yeah.
or somewhat. Also, I think pro players, well, pro players don't. It's very hard to get pro players don't play late. It's very little players who actually play late game, at least in the European server right now. Most just try to finish it latest with a Tempest push.
Yeah.
Normally it's just like they push, do like a this is an Archon ball push or something.
10
Maybe
Archons
get
with
some
plus
spell
3
kills.
attack, man.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's not too much late game. Like I think. But I mean, if I get to late game, I normally win. But I'm not sure if pro players are playing it exactly correctly because they don't have too much practice in it. But it's okay. It's okay. CVT late games also. It's not free Prudor camp anymore. It's just kind of base denying and that kind of stuff, which is quite fun. So I think CVT is in a pretty good position late
Yeah.
game wise.
It's interesting. So I guess just fill us in with your knowledge of the top meta. A lot of people were like myself included thought mech would be a lot better now. But I've just kind of heard word that players are just too good at shutting it down with Swarmhost Nidus, and it's just not
Swarm
getting.
was Nidus.
Yeah,
That's not a thing.
I don't think it's as
Who
good
told you
anymore.
that?
So I
Who
can't.
told you that?
I've probably been listening to Twitch chat again. I'm sorry, Serral. I think
Ah,
I.
Swarmos Nidus. It's I actually tried to play Swarmos Nidus, but I have given up on that.
Yeah, it's
It's
just
90,
it's
95 drones, 8 Mutaling Bane or Ravager Bane. That's the only two options, and you can minia.
Wow,
I mean,
cool.
what's
So
their
even
what
Ultraling Bane versus Mech now?
Mutaling Bane? I mean, you can go Ultraling Bane after that. That's what the Koreans. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what Koreans do, and it's just mainly getting a lot of money and taking somewhat okay trades.
Hmm.
Or then, well, if you play Ravage Drilling Bane, you are going to trade around evenish, and you just kind of want to mine a bit more than your opponent. But to go to the, I personally think mech's pretty good, but no one plays it. So I think like I personally didn't figure out mech too well. Like I still think mech's very strong, but like no Korean wants to play mech. So I guess there's a very clear solution that it's not actually very good. That or that Terrans don't think it's very good, but
Hmm.
I don't know exactly why that is because I actually think it's pretty decent.
Yeah, I feel like it should be really good, but I'm kind of waiting to
Yeah,
see
I mean
more
it has some
tournaments.
weaknesses. I mean it's just kind of it's easy to die with mech, and yeah, I mean Mutaling Bane is also very good against mech. I think on a bigger maps, very hard to play as a mech player,
So
just because
was
they're crow so much.
so was Raynor actually white right back when he was saying, Mutiling Bane versus Mech, it's the
Uh
way to go? Or
yeah, but he already canceled his words. He already canceled his words.
yeah, he got popped and he was
It
like,
came like
okay.
yeah, I mean it came back after 2 years, so it
It's
doesn't
really
count anymore. Doesn't count anymore.
it's crazy to see that that's just becoming a thing. To me, it's like, go back to however many years back and say, yeah, play Mutiling Bane versus Mech. And I'm like, yeah, if you
Yeah,
enjoy getting your units burnt down, like that's not going to work. Hellions are too good, man. Thors are too good. The Thor splash change,
yeah.
I think, is huge. I think that's the
I
big
guess
one.
it's I guess it's not really just Mutalim Bane. It's just more of you go Mutalim Bane, so you actually get the control of the game, and then you play. You get Inside Echo, and then you play whatever you want afterwards.
Hmm.
Because I feel like if you go Mutalim Bane and the Terran just sits there and you pop your head into that wall, it's not gonna work out. But you kind of just need to use the money that the mutas, the control that mutas give you, that you get the whole map instantly and that kind of stuff, and then play whatever afterwards. Not
Yeah,
the Mutalin Bane actually winning you the fights necessarily.
that's true.
Even though they can win you the fights,
It
definitely.
definitely forces a lot more diversification of tech from the mech as well. They've got to just build, they can't have as simple an army, right? They can't just focus on the tank count as much. But okay, that's interesting. Just for that's my own little kind of just pet interest where I'm like, what's going on in the meta? There's not enough tournaments going on right now. Like, I want big LAN tournaments as well. Obviously, we've still got a lot of
Yeah,
great online stuff, but I'd like to see more big events where everyone comes down to LAN. And I feel like we always learn some stuff because suddenly everyone comes together. And I feel half of the learning is almost all the eliminated players hanging out in the player pit and watching replays together and watching the games and talking together. I think there's like a big information exchange that happens at these events. Do
yeah.
you, if you get frustrated in a matchup, like a lot of players have Skype groups, they have Discord groups. Some are 90% memes, some are 90% balance wine.
I think
Uh,
most of them are. It's 50% balance fine and memes. So no, I'm not part of. I'm not asking meme tips.
do you ever complain to people? Is there like someone, if you want to vent about Terran being OP, do you kind of like, do you have like a group chat where a bunch of pros all kind of vent together, or are you someone who's just like pretty chill about the whole thing?
Uh, I'm pretty chill. I'm not. I mean, there's some group chats. I never. I mean, I've been in some group that I'm not even sure if I'm in any right now, but I never really participated in the conversations or anything, or even read them. So it's just kind of doing my own thing always.
That's the
If
way
someone
to,
asks me
yeah.
for help, I might have then we might talk about stuff like that kind of stuff. But otherwise, I don't really ask for help too much, or I don't really answer to help instantly. If someone doesn't personally ask me.
Have you ever had a moment earlier on where you were do you remember being stupid at StarCraft? I guess is how I want to word this because I remember being very stupid at StarCraft where I was like, mules are really unfair because Terran can just drop workers and even though you killed the workers they just make mules. Like I can remember having very limited understanding of StarCraft fundamentals and
Yeah.
do you think can you remember being stupid at StarCraft?
I mean, we still are somewhat stupid, aren't we? But it's
Always.
way, yeah. But yeah, for sure, I have had those times, and I have complained to complained to myself on how unbalanced some stuff are. But yeah, I haven't really been too public about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just been thinking to myself that that's too broken.
Was there ever a moment though, like where maybe you learnt to understand the game better, like a aha or like a eureka sort of moment where like the light bulb switched on? Maybe it could have been with like a matchup you were struggling with, and you just figured some stuff out, or maybe it was like a mindset thing where you kind of realized you were thinking about how to play Zerg wrong, and you had to change your whole mindset around how to play the game. You remember any moments like this where you feel like you turned a corner and leveled up in your understanding?
No, nothing really happened like that. Nothing really happened in an instant. Suddenly figuring out something.
I mean,
It's
it's a
always been
grind, right?
more. Yeah, not really. Always been a bit of more of a slower process. I feel like some understandings I have done in a moment, sure, but they're normally small things, not really figuring out something completely.
I guess that's honestly what long-term improvement is anyway, and it's what the best improvement is it's putting one foot in front of the other. You know, you're putting one block on the tower, then another block, and your understanding grows over time so gradually you almost don't even notice it. It's like you know, if you don't actually record it and you're like working out every day, you won't even realize. And you'll look at a photo of your old self and you're like, oh, I used to be skinny bitch and now I'm built. I didn't even realize, because you don't notice the changes. And it's the same thing with StarCraft skill or how good you are at Zerg vs. Terran or anything, right? Like if the progress is just very steady and incremental, it's kind of easy to not really have like one giant moment. I think that's
Yeah,
interesting though, because I have talked to some players where they've had a moment where it suddenly all came together with a certain understanding or taking more responsibility for their losses. I guess this is a good segue into like tournament kind of losses. Has there been a loss which was the most crushing for you, or has there been a like I guess what's the process like after a hard loss? If you get wrecked in a tournament, do you go home and watch all the replays? Do you analyze them? Do you have like a thought process? How do you break it down to move forward?
uh, well, normally I like to take a. I don't go instant into replays or anything. Kind of just want to forget about the stuff until I'm actually finished with my sad, finished being sad, and that takes a while. So, but yeah, after that, to be honest, like I don't like if I finish a tournament, I don't really watch too much of the games of that tournament, or my own games at least afterwards. But just like I mentioned, if there's something new or something that I find confusing or something, I might go into the replay late or the VOD later on and check what I should have done. But if I feel like I just lost because I played worse, then I'll have to even watch the replay or analyze what I did wrong. Because like I said, I think it's pretty obvious most of the times in those cases. But yeah, losing process is always it's always a bit challenging. Normally, I have a 1 hour depression afterwards.
Yep.
Then I normalize. But it's a
I'm
pretty fast
impressed.
process.
I'm
Like
impressed.
one
It's only
hour.
1 hour is a lot better than most players.
Yeah, well, I am still sad after that, but I already normalize, kind of. Like I can already have a normal conversation after that. But obviously, I'm still in a sad mood, and it
Yeah.
takes me 4 weeks to not think about that at all.
4 weeks.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Well, not no, I'm not sad for 4 weeks, but
But it's you're still
yeah, like I'm not gonna
processing
watch
it.
the games. I'm not gonna watch the games next 4 weeks,
Okay.
even if there was something I would want to watch.
Fair enough. What if you did something? So you said okay. Sometimes it's obvious. Do you ever have a moment? Can you think of a game where you just did not just slipping up in execution a little bit? Like there's times where you just misclick a few times or something, right? Or you
Yeah.
miss some injects or you get supply blocked. but where you literally choose the completely wrong thing to do. You, for some reason, you get flustered mentally, and you just choose a really bad strategic choice. Because there's times where either we get muddled up in our thinking or we misread the game. We look at some scouting and we think it's a completely different strategy. Like you see a forge, so you think it's this build, but it's actually something else. And then when you look at the replay or you look at the VOD, you say it was actually, from what you'd seen in the game, it was really obvious with your knowledge what you should have done, but you did something else. Have you ever had a game like that where you were like really kind of like, man, how did I make such a wrong decision when normally I would make the right decision? Do any games come to mind?
Tournament games, not really. Like actually seeing something and doing a completely wrong judgment. I can't remember having a tournament game like that. But I remember playing with like my last series, SST, like Katowice series against SEST.
Mm-hmm.
I consider that one of my, like, me playing extremely dumb that series. Like I wasn't really scouting anything, so it wasn't like reacting wrongly on information. But I knew what he's gonna do. Like I 100% knew he's gonna do the clay build pretty much every game. He's gonna block, and I don't know. It's kind of like there's this game on Ephemeral, for example. Like I know exactly what he's gonna do,
Mm-hmm.
and I go for my DT drop defense, and I literally know units when the clay build comes. And he played that the clay build every game the whole tournament.
Yeah.
Like it was more of like that was probably my biggest brain fart moment, but it wasn't really reacting wrongfully to information. It was just me be playing extremely dumb.
So what do you think caused that? Was it nerves? Were you tired that day? Like, do you think that you're putting too much pressure on your shoulders? Like, because it's
I don't
hard.
know.
It's hard to know.
I think that series, honestly, I think I got. I mean, I wasn't tired or anything. I think I was playing completely fine, but I feel like I was getting a bit too frustrated. There was I just think there was a couple of dumb games in that series. I played some bad. I actually won 2 games with the Nidus build in in that series, and I never won a game with that Nidus build in practice. Never. I
Oh
decided
wow.
to take in a tournament game. Like that's just, I don't know. I kind of like. Well, the first game was kind of ahead. I did the Nidus build. It was kind of like okay. Then the second, I don't know. I just kind of got frustrated in that series eventually, and I think I just kind of lost my mind a bit there eventually, and that kind of made me play a bit dumb. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say, but it was kind of just overall wasn't playing the smartest game. I was playing okay that day. It's just that
Well,
the strategic choices were awful.
it's also he was playing very hard to read. He was blocking hatcheries very early, but he was also doing purposefully
Yeah, but
inefficient builds. Like he was doing his Stargate 30 seconds late, so you couldn't scout it in the Zen game, for
not against
instance.
me. Against me. Ah, yeah, sure,
In Zen, the final game. Yeah.
sure. That was a good game. That I gave to him, but otherwise it was a bad, not a great series. But yeah, I mean, every time he blocked, I should. My plan was to go into that series. Every time he blocks, it's gonna be a clay. That was my mentality going. I knew he was not gonna play a DT drop.
Yeah.
I was sure he was gonna play every time the clay build because that gave him a very good win rate in this tournament. And it's just one of the guys that if he gets a good win rate with the field, he's gonna just reuse it all the time.
Mm.
Like he was playing DT, like before he was playing always DT drop. Basically, if I had Stargate, it was always DT drop, so it was very easy to read on. So he just kind of went in with that mentality. And then, I don't know, it wasn't really. I wasn't like trying to read the game, and I read it incorrectly. It was just
Yeah, you just didn't
playing
follow
that.
the plan, right? Sometimes you
I
go off
didn't follow the
book.
plan.
Yeah. That was always when I used to compete. My most frustrating losses were where I didn't follow the plan. I would always be like, just very, because it's hard to go. Why didn't I follow my goddamn plan? It's the plan, you know. The number one rule is
Yeah.
follow the plan. Like obviously you stay flexible in a StarCraft game. So that's not what we're saying. For anyone who's not a competitive player who just is a fan, you stay flexible, but there should always be a reason for you doing something different. You see something in the game that tells you they're doing something else, you go a different path. But there are games where as a pro player, you don't see anything and you just change path for no reasons and it gets you killed. And those are some of the most frustrating losses to deal with. And it happened to me many times. So I was nowhere near the level of player that you are. But I always remember those used to drive me crazy, man. I would just be so annoyed at myself in the weeks afterwards whenever that happened.
to go back to the series once more, I think now that I think about it, I think it was just me. Because I mean, it was obviously a new build. The clay build he was doing it, like I did have an insane amount of experience against it,
Yeah.
and like if I see this, I would normally play my DT drop defense, and I just kind of went a bit robotic and went for a DT drop defense. Is what I would have done in like a very normal game. But even though my plan was, even though I kind of knew I was going to for the adept build, I kind of went a bit robotic and played what I would have done before. Even though, yeah, I don't know. You have to say,
Yeah, it's a rough series, but I'm gonna be a dick and I'm gonna ask one more question about it because I think it's really interesting, as annoying as it is to go back and rehash a frustrating tournament loss.
Well, it's so a long time ago.
It's a while back.
Not bad feelings upon.
The 4 weeks is over, right?
Yeah.
Nightshade
I
was
just laugh at the series right now.
Was Nightshade map one in that series? I think it was, where you did an Evo chamber wall off on top of your ramp.
It was the second match. Sleepers was first.
You won sleepers with the Nidus all in. The Nidus
yeah,
okay, yeah. So Nightshade was the one where you actually had a really perfect defense with your Evo chamber wall, and then you just he did no damage, and you started droning, and then he just did like a random shade in to pressure, and you just didn't build the Evo chamber, and the Adepts got in. That's what.
Yeah.
I feel like that mistake was obviously like very out of character for you, and it felt like maybe that's where you got frustrated with yourself, like from the outside, and that's where the other mistakes came afterwards. I don't know.
I was kind of, that was one of the games I was happy. Because my plan was, I kind of played my plan. Like Lambo was actually telling me that that if he was me, he wouldn't do the Evo block because I mean that was like a made in a fly kind of a solution to the build. So I didn't have very much practice with it, and he told me that you're gonna probably fuck up with it because it's kind of thing that like you're probably gonna miss one evolution or one spot or something, and it's gonna get through, and that's kind of what happened. I feel like if I would have practiced a bit more, that wouldn't have happened because then it's more clear to me. And I was kind of a bit freestyle. I thought the idea was very good, but yeah, I failed there a bit. But otherwise, I think that game was pretty good because I mean that was one of the games I felt like I followed my plan pretty well. I did, but I was planning the Evo block. Then I did the Ravager Bane all in afterwards, which is very good, but against what he's doing. But the one thing I actually forgot to do that game was contaminate the storm, because that's actually what I mean. I like if I feel like if I make 2 overseers and I double contaminate the storm, I'm always gonna win those games. In my early games, okay.
Yeah. I mean, but, I think definitely it was like the chat actually pointed out it was the Spore Crawler just forgot to root there. That was and it got in. Yeah, that was one of those ones where I think it actually looked really clean. I mean, there was that one crucial mistake. Now, obviously, I hear about the contaminate being missed as well. It makes a lot more sense. Cool. So for you, obviously, it's like
really means I just kind of forgot about the contaminate. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so what about so this happens. You have a bad tournament loss, right? It happens. There's infinite losses that are hard to deal with in a career. You learn to deal with them. You've been around many years now. You've had lots of hard losses, lots of great victories. You know how to deal with it. You are in a tournament a few months from now, and you feel like you do the exact same thing you did on Ephemeron, like the same sort of mistake of like just do a different response. You don't follow the plan, even though you know. What do you think is like the thing you tell yourself to kind of go, okay, let's calm down and stay focused on my game? Because it felt like there was a bit of a spiral in that series, right? Where like one mistake in one game led to a bigger mistake in the next game. So I'm always interested about going back, and it's not about the individual mistakes, but what interests me, and especially I have a better understanding of now, which I wish I had a better understanding of as a player, was it's not about how do I not do my Archon drop defense. It's what state of mind was I in where I decided to do something that was off book, that wasn't part of my plan? Why did I go and do something else? You know, like what led me to the bad decision, and how can I make sure I've got my eyes open? So next time I see myself doing faulty decision making or getting a bit too excited and not thinking through my plan, how can I make sure that doesn't happen in the future? And that's very hard to solve. This is not easy, right? But is there anything you think you'd try to mentally tell yourself to stay in the zone?
Not really. I think like I personally think I'm very good at staying in the zone and not getting too carried away. I think, but I just think that series was a bit of a single time thing. I feel like it's not gonna happen too often, so I haven't really thought about it too much. I'm pretty good at normally doing what I'm planning.
Yeah.
I only really jump on very clear opportunities. Maybe try to win a game earlier, but normally I just kind of I'm just very good at. I feel like I'm very good at staying to my plan. Honestly, as a
Yeah.
general rule.
That's the hardest thing, right? Because it's like it's such a single one-off out there, and it's like, do I even need to come up with something? Maybe not. Maybe that literally is the only time that happens in your entire career where you go that far off book. Because
Maybe
yeah,
maybe it's gonna happen the next time. I don't know, but
well,
that's what I feel. Anyways, like I feel like that was a very uncharacteristic mistake.
yeah. Well, it was. It was definitely. I hadn't really seen you play a game like that Ephemeron and that Zen game. Those two maps were the ones where I kind of went, oh, this is weird. This doesn't quite look like the Serral I'm used to watching. Like there was just it's just seems odd decision making. And like you said, you're scouting. Normally is so on point, but you weren't as on top of your scouting in those games, right? And kind of understanding what was happening. Scouting is what we've kind of put down as one of your, I mean, your key features as a player, right? When we're commentating, we're like, we always talk about your Zergling, right? All 2018, we just kept joking about your stupid Zergling running laps around your opponent's base and never dying for like 2 minutes straight. And they finally kill it. And then another one runs in and runs laps around their base. And this was just the funniest thing for me because the number of times you would see things more reliably and earlier than other players, it makes me think you do plan out overlord positioning, Ling timing run bys. I think a lot of players are very random when they're poking with Zerglings to check things. For you, I feel like you're doing it constantly, and I feel like you just put a bit more attention towards it. Um, is it correct to say scouting's number one priority for you as a player? It feels like.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you want to play safe and not die to dumb or weird stuff and still be fine in a normal game, you pretty much have to be consistent with scouting because otherwise you're gonna either drop behind. Well, you're not gonna necessarily drop behind, but you can drop behind or then you can die accidentally. So yeah, I would say it's my first priority for sure.
Yeah, you've had some really good maps where an overlord on a nice bit in the middle of the map sees the tanks coming out at the right time and that sort of stuff. And just thinking of a bunch of different times. I've also noticed more recently, I feel like a lot of Zergs, and maybe it's a stylistic thing, but I feel like a Laser, Lambo, these sort of other top level European Zergs that I really think are just insanely good players. Same with Rogue and Dark to a certain extent. I feel like they're a little bit quicker than you to jump up to 85 or 90 drones recently. Whereas I feel like you're a little bit more likely to hang out at 72, 75 workers. But because you're so focused on scouting, you're using that instead to like almost overcommit to shutting down pressure and shutting down attacks. Like I feel like you're really looking to win your engagements very decisively. And this is specifically in the last year especially. I feel like you're very focused on really shutting down engagements and keeping control of the game, while other players want to get more of an economic advantage and then survive. For you, I feel like you're looking to not lose control.
Well, I haven't seen like any big differences honestly, but well, I haven't paid attention either too much. But I have my own system that I like to follow, like my own droning system, CVP. It's very obvious to me when I want to make my drones and that kind of stuff. So I just kind of follow that system always. And well, I don't know what other people are doing and how their systems look like, but yeah, I just kind of like to follow the way. I have I have seen the game. I have seen that it's the most safest way, and at the same time, I feel like I'm always gonna be in a fine spot economically.
Yeah, I think some players it's get 90 drones or die trying. I don't know if it's a system so much as a come on, let's please survive. In terms of like that system, without giving too much away, of course, we don't want you to reveal your dark secrets of victory. But is there just kind of like it's just a mixture of just keeping your finger on how far down the tech tree the Protoss is going. Okay, he's saturating. He's taking gases on his third. I'll
CVP
take
is
my fourth.
extremely easy. CVP is the extremely easy drone game. You got 66. You can do that. If this is Stargate, let's say it's a Stargate.
Yeah.
You go 66. Then you see gases at the third phase. You go 80. That's it.
That's it.
That's CVP. That's basically CVP. It's extremely easy droning method on that matchup. Basically, you just need to break to the gases on that matchup. It's not very, very complicated. I think CVT is a bit more. That gets a bit more complicated. This is a lot of early game, like how much do the Hellions do and that kind of stuff and kind of need. But I kind of still want to kill the first tank push pretty convincingly. So it's a bit more complicated there, but I think CVP is pretty simple, and you can make so many decisions based on just the gas timings. I know it's very easy for me, at least personally,
Yeah,
to make these judgments. I'm not saying the matchup's easy. I'm just saying that actually making
I'm sure
basic judgments are easy.
I'm sure Twitch chat's memeing right now. They're just like, "Oh, Protoss is easy." Yeah, no, that's actually like a thing where it's nice to have that freedom against the Stargate opening. I mean, if you're dealing with Glaive Adepts or an Archon drop and other things, obviously there's like a layer in there, right? You'd be like, okay, stop at 43 drones or 41 drones or wherever. Or if it's Adepts, maybe 38 drones, I guess you're probably stopping at.
Yeah.
Build like 20 roaches, then add some drones, and then if they're taking a third and kind of adding tech and stuff, you drone up to 60. Then if they're actually taking gases on there, I guess you go straight to 66, right? And then it's just gases on the third again, no matter what, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's when it comes to anything else than Stargate, it gets a bit more complicated, or honestly, instantly, because just again, I feel like you're never gonna play a perfect game. You're always gonna lose something to the adept, so you kind of really need to play from just feeling more of, and like you're always gonna, I don't know, it's just the system isn't as clear on those cases. I feel like it's more about making sure that you're not gonna die to a push. Like that is just making, if it's a Glaive village, just make immortals behind, and you're not gonna die to a push while having still a good drone count.
Pushing your workers and scouting at the same time, and just double checking that they're still going down the path.
Yeah, just double checking that they're going the normal macro path all the time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because scouting is something which is so evasive and something a lot of players just can't seem to get a finger on in StarCraft, and it's one of the things where if you can understand how to counter everything, it's incredible. But I feel like StarCraft has unlimited layers of complexity, where the more knowledge you have in a matchup, the more you realize, I can pull one drone off gas and get slightly more minerals because I don't need my thing in this situation. I can delay my ling speed and go for straight lair. Then I can have an overseer to shut down the DT drop, and I can add ling speed later and be ahead against an Archon drop, right? There's all these tiny little reactions and twists and turns, and within those, it opens up into almost unlimited layers. And it's something where, as those layers settle, a lot of that's on a subconscious level for you. I can say, tell me how to ZVP, Serral, and you're not going to be able to just explain it because it's so situational.
Well, I just explained it.
Okay.
Stargate-wise.
66 drones, 80 drones. That's it. All right, guys.
That's
a lot of new GMs are coming to the EU ladder right now, Serral.
Yeah, but yeah, obviously there's a lot to the process of a game, but I feel like games shouldn't be overthinked. Just kind of need to have a couple baselines and play through those baselines, and it's gonna be a lot of the time better than overthinking and doing unnecessary stuff because you're overthinking stuff.
Do you ever tell yourself something to stop overthinking? How do you ever like self-talk? I know some people sing. We'll see Harstem singing in the booth. He's like singing to himself at the start of a series. I see you sometimes muttering to yourself. I think I've seen, without audio, because we don't have you mic'd up, but we did say you. I think we saw you say fuck once. We're pretty sure. We're like, I think that's a fuck. I'm pretty sure you said fuck. That might have been the Zest series. I'm not sure, but I was like, that's not Finnish. That's definitely English. I know that word. But everyone has their own habits. I remember way back, Choya, I think it was, from FXO and For You and stuff. He would literally be talking to himself the entire game. He'd be like, all right, we're going to do the thing. Like, it was almost like he was a streamer or something while he was in the GSL booth. It was a weird thing to watch. Everyone has their own habits. I know Grubby used to always just close. He'd always have his notepad with his builds. He'd always do a thing where he like closes his eyes after looking at his notepad at the start of a series and tries to like get in the zone and just think about his build and then, let go of it and try to be reactive when he gets in the game and not be too stiff. Do you ever tell yourself anything? Do you have certain music you listen to? What do we do to get vibing when we're in the booth?
In the booth, there's no vibes in the booth. It's just a raw gameplay there. But I do talk to myself a little bit, and it's mainly I mainly speak to myself when I'm unhappy with what I'm doing. If I'm doing some dumb plays and that kind of stuff, or if I'm unhappy with how my enemy is playing, doing dumb plays. Just overall, if there's dumb plays, I maybe insult a little bit and that kind of stuff. But nothing much. I don't really have any routines, pre-match routines or anything special.
Do you get mean with yourself? You're like, God damn it, Serral, you piece of shit! I can't believe you lost to that cannon rush. It's fucking Haas. Like, what did you do? Come on. Or are you just kind of like
A little bit mean, but not too mean at the same time.
I think it's funny because
I try to keep it civil.
That's good. We should try to be a little bit compassionate with ourselves. But I mean, I think of like a lot of tennis players are always talking to themselves angrily as well. It's like part of the competitive thing is you kind of, you want to harness that energy. I think anger is like really powerful. I think if you're uncontrolled anger and you're just, game's unfair, that's a different thing. That's like out of control. But if you can get a bit worked up, you can actually channel that. You can be like, all right, come on, like I can do better. Like I can step up. We can do better than this. And you can really G yourself up. And I think for a lot of players, that energy helps them build up when they're under pressure. And it's where you get championship quality games. I think if someone was just being a robot, you wouldn't have as many comebacks. So part of why I'm a fan of yours is you've made a lot of good comebacks in your career. And those are my favorite games. I love it when someone's down and they're not necessarily, maybe they're not playing as well. Maybe their opponent's playing really fucking well. Maybe it's a mix of both. But there's been a lot of moments where I feel like you've clawed your way back. You've gotten a bit angry. You've motivated yourself. There's some Rocky theme song music playing in your head or something like that. And you bring it together. So a little bit of, all right, get it together. Bit of insulting your opponent's play and then getting motivated to shut them down and show how silly their play is. Is there any music you're listening to while you're in the booth? What sort of music do you listen to?
No.
Just game sounds?
Soundtrack.
Oh, really?
Sometimes I put the game music on. Sometimes not. And not really any. I don't listen to anything in the booth.
Oh, cool. I feel like almost every player listens to music. That's really unique.
Well, you can. You can't even. It's not even allowed always, so it's not something you should get completely used to, I think.
Really? They don't let you play with music sometimes?
Yeah, I'm not sure what event it was, but normally when there's no internet browser even allowed, that probably means that there's no music player age allowed.
Oh, man. This is where we're getting to in esports in 2020. They make you pee in a cup to test you for drugs before you get in the booth. You can't have internet to play your music player. I remember some people used to have like an iPod or a USB with their music and they just put it on the computer to make sure.
I'm not sure if that's allowed.
I don't think you can, anymore because it could get, someone vibrates your leg. He's 12 pulling, if anything like that, right? Yeah, that's interesting. I used to always play with lots of music, so that's just kind of cool. And it's a good soundtrack. Do you go Brood War or SC2 soundtrack?
I mix it up normally. Normally I have them both in Apple, but to be honest, I think the Zerg Brood War soundtrack's pretty bad.
It's not as good as Yeah, I want to play the
Yeah, it's very
Terran soundtrack.
depressing. It's very depressing.
You can't choose the Terran soundtrack. As this is actually one of my big pet peeves, man. I got to open it up on Spotify or something if I want to listen to the Terran soundtrack while playing Zerg Ladder.
Yeah, but the Zergs, it's not good. Not good. The Zerg soundtrack is bad. I can't remember. I'm not sure if the StarCraft 2, StarCraft 2 soundtrack is any good, but it's at least better.
Yeah, it's a bit better. I mean, I think the
Because
Terran ones are always just the coolest though. The Terran music always has good flavor.
I think the SC2 Pro soundtrack is also pretty good.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
remember the SC1. Well, I don't really remember. Yeah, can't remember the SC1 Pros track, but SC2's track's okay.
Well, we've had you for quite a while, so I don't want to keep you for too much longer. So we'll start rounding up soon. Let me know if you need to go very quickly or anything like that, and I can be quicker. How
No,
are how are you for time?
nothing to do anyways. Nothing to do anyways. And ladder is gonna open at 2.5 hours maybe, and then I'm gonna eat, so I'm gonna start playing like 4 hours.
All right, people who want
No.
to snipe, Serral, you know where, you know what time. Okay, cool. So let's do a little bit on personal routine. I've known amazingly skilled pro players who have great routine, and ones who just party all night and eat like shit and don't exercise as well. What's your own personal routine? First of all, exercise. Do you do any sport? Did you grow up playing sport, or like what do you do? Do you go for a jog, go for a walk around your house?
Mm, not anything regular, but walks with the dog are uh, sometimes too often, depending on how often my parents are willing to do it. And he demands very long walks, so those are the I would say just walks with the dog, and during summer I do golf, but that's depends. It depends. Yeah, it's a lot of walking when you play golf, but if you take a car, then it's not so much walking.
Hmm. What's too many walks if like the dog wants you to go out for like
Well,
5
it wants you to go out every day twice, and well, you don't need to take it out to pee because it's always outside. It's actually an outside dog, so it's never inside. But I just always we go at 10, 11 for the morning walk, and around 6 for the evening walk, and normally like 1.5 hours to 2 hours.
Cool. And so it's normally get up, you'll eat around midday, you said, and then so what time is it? It's
Well,
about 11:30 there
breakfast.
now, right?
Breakfast. I don't eat my breakfast during midday.
Oh no, your breakfast is much earlier, right? You said you wake up 8 to 9,
Yeah,
you eat straight away, yeah?
absolutely.
What's breakfast
Maybe
look
shower
like?
before. Uh, Normally it's just a bread with something on top of it. A rye bread with something on top of it.
Well, I'm jealous. You guys
No,
actually have real bread over there. We have pretty bad bread. What's something though? Like we think peanut butter, we're some weird Finnish thing.
no. Well, like I said, today it was cheese and some slices of tomatoes on top. I think yesterday it was cheese and some slice of cucumber on top. So normally it's
No
cheese.
reindeer.
No, no. Just well, moose. There's sometimes moose, but no
Hey,
reindeer.
is that from like moose that you guys have bought or hunted yourselves?
Well, we have my dad hunts, so there's a lot of moose, but obviously a lot of the meat is just like minced meat or something like that. So you can't really put that on a
Yeah.
bread.
Yeah, not exactly. I mean, actually, we'll think of the old video, right, where you're walking around the woods with a gun with your dad and stuff. How often have you been hunting growing up? Have you been out like hiking and camping much, or was this just more for the photo shoot?
That was more of a photo shoot for sure. But I mean, I have been once or twice hunting. Well, not moose hunting, but we have been fox hunting and that kind of stuff. But then well, I had done a lot of that kind of stuff when I was younger, like camping and that kind of stuff, but not really nowadays, not so much. Now nowadays it's a mini StarCraft.
It's just StarCraft all day, man. All right, so you get up, you'll have your breakfast. You said you'll start practice. What ladder opens about what 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah, well, you can play custom. Well, normally it depends so much. It's so hard to have a like. Sometimes you find people at 11 play with, but
What's like a habit though? Like what do you always do? Like so the ladder time, the practice customs changes. Like
well, I normally
what's the
always
same?
oh well lately I have always off race in the morning, and normally I always eat. Like normally I might play with someone before I eat lunch if I find someone to play customs with. But if I don't find anyone, I'll start normally after lunch. That's when you
Mm.
actually start finding people. So that's like around 2, depending when I eat the lunch. And yeah, then it's just the playing pretty much for a lot of the evening.
Cool. Is there any specific like rule or breaks you have? Is it like you always get up and go have a walk every hour, or you can play for like 6 hours straight? Like,
No, I would never play so much in straight. I normally take a lot of breaks, I would say. Normally max, if I play 7 games in a row with someone, let's say I play custom games, like 7 games probably the most I play in a row.
mm,
Then I would always take a bit of a break at least.
I think that's always good, right? It's there's a thing where people used to fetishize the story they told you in Korea. Oh, to be a top Brood War player, you need to play 12, 14 hours a day every day, and that's the best way to practice. Excuse me. And people would go on about it, and they would go, "Yeah, I want to be like a Korean pro gamer. Let's play 12 hours a day." And it's like, at a certain point, you're reinforcing bad mechanics and bad habits and bad strategies. It's a terrible way to practice. Like, you do get some advantages from it. Don't get me wrong. You can play in terrible conditions because you're used to putting yourself in a bad condition if you're playing 12, 14 hours a day. But it's not healthy. You'd see players having like mental breakdowns. They wouldn't be able to handle the emotional stress of tournaments because they're too stressed out. They're playing too much all the time, and they'd also just start playing dumb sometimes. So I really like the fact that a lot more players I'm talking to are having healthier schedules, kind of like what you're mentioning here, where you're taking breaks, you're focusing more on quality over quantity as well. Like 20 games a day, I feel like is enough for your brain to process and think about and kind of ruminate on, and then come to conclusions about, which popped into my head actually. I used to, and I still occasionally have StarCraft dreams. Do you have StarCraft dreams?
Mm, not too often. Well, actually, I can't remember any.
Do you
I
ever
probably
like,
have had it.
do you wake up or maybe you're in the shower and you go, oh, I'm going to try that thing. Next time they try to dive with the Hellions, I'm going to do this.
Well,
Do you,
I mean, if you meant dreams, well, when I'm sleeping, I never dream about StarCraft. But when I'm in shower, I do get thoughts. Yeah, sure. But I do get thoughts when I'm doing something else than playing StarCraft for sure.
yeah.
Sometimes, and I go practice them with the AI and see if they're any good. But not I don't normally wake up or have any StarCraft dreams realistically. Maybe sometimes when I'm in tournaments. Well, do I? I'm not sure. Even in tournaments, I do think about StarCraft a lot. I do imagine the winning moment and that kind of stuff. When I went like before a tournament, when I'm like in the hotel room or something, but I don't think I even like when I'm sleeping. I don't think I dream of the StarCraft too much there.
That is interesting though. So you actively try to visualize yourself winning your games and kind of think about how it'll go, because that's something a lot of athletes, a lot of different competitors do, and it's actually meant to be super powerful. Is visualizing, obviously not just you holding the trophy, but like visualizing your strategies working as well as you executing them well, and just playing it through in your head over and over, almost like it's practice without your hands actually being on the keyboard.
I'm not sure if this works as a practice, but yeah, that happens sometimes. I do think about it. Think about the good moments
Mm.
in before I actually play the game there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about different stuff with like how we learn and how if you are focused on stuff enough, there is like some evidence that shows that your brain will practice like repetitions of things while you're sleeping, at like amplified frequency as well, like faster than you could in real time. And I think it's the same if you're just thinking about something, right? Like if you have something as your whole focus, you are, even if you're just jogging or in the shower, you're kind of solving problems. You're thinking about it, even on a subconscious level, right? Have you ever had a moment where you weren't enjoying StarCraft as much, or like you weren't as focused on it and your play suffered because of that? Because I think a lot of players have this where they get burnt out and there's not really, they need to take a bit of a break before they can really start being consumed by StarCraft again and living the 100% StarCraft life.
I wouldn't say I have had a longer periods like that, but sometimes, like maybe after one day, I'm not really feeling it at all, and I just kind of call it a day, or just don't play at all that day, and the next day I'm motivated again. So I wouldn't say hasn't been a problem to me at least, but for like one day maybe. I mean, I think it's very normal that for one day you just don't feel like playing and then you don't play, but I haven't really had like a big motivation problems or just not having fun with the game at all.
Do you take any days off? Do you have like a weekend where you don't play StarCraft, or one day off a week?
Not regularly, but when I'm not home, I obviously won't play. So I would say I play pretty much. I think it's fair to say I play pretty much every day, honestly. And well, if I don't feel like playing, then I don't play. But I wouldn't say that's a break day. I would say that's like not actually wanting to play that day. And obviously, if I'm during summer, I'm gonna go to summer cottage a lot and that kind of stuff. So it's naturally a good amount of breaks, I would say. But there's nothing like I don't have like a day that I'm not gonna play on that day specifically every week
Well, it
or every month.
sounds like you kind of just enjoy the process of playing it, right? So you feel like playing it most days, so you end up practicing because you just want to, you're interested in it. So I mean, I think that's the only way to be a top competitor at something is you've got to be so invested in it, right? You put a crazy amount of time in this. If maybe you have a friend from school who's a banker now or an accountant or he's in university, there's no way he puts as much time thinking about that as you do about StarCraft. Like, and I think that's just the nature of competition as its own job, right? So there has to be an obsession in that you love the game, right? And you've got to derive joy from it. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to keep thinking about it that much. So to me, I really like hearing all this because it just sounds like you're super zen about it and that you're just, if you don't feel like playing one day, you won't play. But you're led by your enjoyment of it. I mean, on a daily basis, do you feel like it just feels fun just to hop on, play some customs, play some ladder?
Well, I wouldn't say it's all fun, but I kind of feel obligated as well to play since I see it as my job. So it's I play because it's fun, but I also feel that I need to play to actually, well, I guess to keep up the results and that kind of stuff. So, but it's not like I'm not only playing just because it's very fun to me. So that's the only reason why opening started too.
I think it's easy for people to let that obligation take over and feel like, oh man, I gotta grind harder or something. But I think balance is always the thing there, right? Just knowing when to say, all right, I'm feeling a bit lazy, but let's get on and play some games and learn some stuff and get better. But there's also days where it's like, no, it's actually time to like take a day off and chill out and, go walk the dog and watch a movie or something, right? But I think that's interesting, finding that balance, the quest for all StarCraft pro gamers. It's good to have a little bit of insight here. So as we start getting towards closing out, I just want to ask you a couple of quick questions, most of which aren't particularly serious. So don't think about your answer too much, just rapid fire. No one's going to be insulted. First of all, actually, this one's kind of a little bit deeper. Then we'll get into the quick ones. If you could go back 5 years, you've got one day, you can just visit yourself and coach Serral from 5 years ago. You're like, all right, what do you tell Serral from 5 years ago to help him get better at StarCraft quicker? Actually, it could be a life lesson as well. It doesn't have to be to do with StarCraft, your choice.
So 2015. Well, I was already playing in WCS back then, so it wasn't going too bad back then.
You were pretty
That
damn
was
good. Yeah.
Uh, I'm not sure. What would I tell myself? Well, I have always told everyone that the way to success is to build a good basement. But at this point, I already had a pretty good basement, I think. I
Good
was just kind of
foundation.
lacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of lacking. I don't know. I don't know what I was lacking back then. I think I don't know. It's hard to say. So normally I would say I build a good basement, and what's after that? It's to put the cream on top of the basement.
Yeah.
So
what's the
because I'm a
fancy?
good, I
Yeah.
already had the basement built up well back then. So just tell myself, maybe this was a time when I had to add more cheeses to my build
Mm.
and start expanding my playbook. So if I would go 5 years back, I would tell myself to expand my playbook a little bit, get a little bit more crazy, not completely out of the picture to still play my own game, but get a bit more crazy. I think that's what I would tell myself. Because I think back like 5 years or like 4 years, like I was pretty good back then, but I was extremely stale. I think I'm very stale still, but not as. I think I have, like you mentioned, I've added some cheese play, but just overall, I think I've mixed up my builds a lot more
Yeah.
and just more variety, just overall.
You know what's funny? It's like, well, what if you sticking with the stale builds made you a better player, though? What if you go back in time, you tell yourself this, you learn more cheesy plays, you become a bit wilder, you get a bit better, and then you stop. And you can't make it past a top 8 or a top 16 in a tournament because you never grinded the defensive macro play quite as hard.
I already grinded it the first 6 years at least, didn't I?
That's true.
And I went for so long afterwards as well.
I mean, I think the advice is correct, but it's this funny thing where I guess if I went back to 2016, 2015 and someone asked me about Serral, I'd be like, that's another EU Zerg player, right? And then as it went forward and people started talking more and more about, no, he's going to be really, really good. He's a great practice partner. He's very good on the ladder. For a long time, I was still like, oh, this guy's trying to make like the Europe. This is like the foreigner dream come true, which is like just defend and react and block the opponent's play. Like if they attack, they're playing wrong. I'm gonna be better defensively. I'm gonna go to hive tech every game. I'm gonna play late game. And I was like, this is just too hard. Like StarCraft 2 is too hard a game. Like I was probably I didn't think about you that much as a player, so it's not like I was thinking about this every day. But that approach to the game in general, I was a big doubter of it. But the fact that you did get your macro play to a higher level, was very impressive. And whilst you did be a bit more aggressive, I think it's kind of funny to play with the timelines. I wish we could just change Serral from 5 years ago and then watch what happens and be like, all right, you start cheesing a lot more now. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe he wins 2017 WCS World Champs.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. All right. Let's get some quicker ones. When you hear douchebag, which pro player's face pops to mind?
Douchebag?
Yeah. It's just silly.
Sounds like
It's nothing.
very silly, very silly. Okay, let's think about it a bit. Let's not go too rapid on this. It's too risky.
It's too risky. Oh, are you saying risky is a douchebag?
Well, he's a slightly, but not enough to go with that word.
No, he's a bag maybe, but
nice.
not a douche. Okay, sure.
Yeah, he's more of a bag. Well, I'm thinking of. There's two guys in my mind now. I feel bad saying the other one, so I think I'm just gonna go with the more of a joke one. So let's go with Marine Lord.
Marine Lord? All right, I'm down with that.
Should be a good. Marine Lord is a douchebag. He was in my chat log yesterday. Completely, it was all purple. Just dumb messages all the way around. No
Number one
joking.
chat troll, man. Every time there's a post on Reddit of people talking about pro gamers in chat, he is always in the screenshot just saying some silly shit.
Yeah. But I like Mario. I like Mario at the same time.
Oh, he's great.
Very great, but he's a douchebag at the same time.
As long as any of his Skype chats never get leaked publicly, because there are far too many jokes that should never see the light of day.
Exactly.
That man is inappropriate as all hell. All right, so whose face pops to mind when you hear Cheezer?
I would say SOS.
Macro God.
I'll go with myself then. My face goes. I think my face pops up then.
Well, yeah, you literally have two trophies popping out of your head right now. So I guess
Well, I feel bad saying like if I think of macro code, I would honestly. I hate saying myself there, so like I can't imagine myself when there's a question. I can't imagine my own face popping up. I don't think that can happen even. So I think Rogue would pop up to me probably.
Rogue. Nice. Who's very sick, but nobody knows it yet. So who's an up and coming player, or maybe they're already quite a good pro player, but they don't get enough respect.
I would have said Clem, but I think he's getting enough respect for now.
Yeah, we've actually, I should have said we've banned Clem from that question, because the last like 4 episodes, people were like, I would say Clem, and I'm like, no, you can't say Clem.
Yeah, I'm not Clem. Soul would have been my answer some time ago. Let's see. There aren't really too many new popping people. I really feel like Soul. I just feel like Soul's pretty good. He just can't bring in tournaments. Like I would have said Soul like way back more confidently, I feel like. But right now, I mean, I just feel like there aren't very many new players, so I'll go and I think Soul would pop up. Zach Clemens will pop up to my mind.
Yeah. I think Soul always pops into my mind as well. Like if he could just bring it on LAN, it would be awesome.
Yeah, I think he's always been pretty good. Just can't really get through even the early stages of the tournaments most of the time.
Who is the hardest player to prepare for?
To prepare for?
Yeah.
Well, what does that even mean?
Like if you see them in a bracket, but you have 2 days. You have 2 days until the bracket, and you know you're facing them,
so
and you go shit.
Player,
yeah.
Does that mean that I'm gonna be like?
You're facing off against them.
Does that mean that there's a good? Do I feel like there's a good chance I'm gonna lose to him, or do I just? This guy's so hard to prepare for that I'm actually just not gonna prepare.
Oh, yeah, like more like it's just too hard to prepare, unpredictable, but also difficult.
Well,
it's a mixture of challenge and difficulty of preparing.
Man, these questions are so hard. There's no names popping up to my mind instantly.
A laser's
not predictable. Yeah. Oh, is a laser in the chat or what?
No, laser's in chat shouting out. He's like me.
Yeah, but Raynor isn't too unpredictable anymore. I know all his moves. Everything's too obvious to me. I read Raynor like a book, so he can't be the answer, obviously. But it would have to be some pros player for sure, I think. Because there's the most opportunities to be.
Well, I mean, I think that's almost the answer, isn't it? It's like Protoss player, the hardest to prepare for Protoss player.
Well, it can't be. I feel like Has wouldn't fit the. I mean, maybe it's just SOS again because he's hard to prepare for. But I think against SOS, I would probably just not prepare for. He's that hard to prepare for, so I would just kind of say it. I'll play extremely standard and say no preparation. I wouldn't plan any specific spills or anything, and it would be still pretty hard to win.
I like that. You're just like, look, it's just going to confuse you even more trying to prepare for what they do, right? It's like,
Yeah,
just see what you scout in the game and try to react to it with the most standard play that you can and double down on that.
but a lot of the time as well, people who play they play their own strange builds and this kind of stuff. I'm not saying SO is one of them, but I feel like a lot of the time their weakness is when the opponent actually plays something a bit strange as well. And I feel like a lot of the people who play their own strange builds, when you kind of throw them off a little bit,
Yeah.
that's when they kind of fall apart a little bit. So
A sharp pressure sometimes just wins the game against them, right? Where it's like,
yeah,
it's not even meant to kill
Yeah, because-
them, and then it just kills everything, and you're like, oh, what?
yeah, because their builds aren't ideal necessarily. They just have a bit less stuff. It's just a bit confusing.
But taking the risk, not Serral style. Serral will play the 45-minute game from behind and then beat the cheesy, crazy player.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Hey, that's why we like watching your games, you know, always putting on a show. That's awesome. So what's going on for you in the near future as we round up? Are we going to see more Serral streams? What's the Serral stream schedule like?
Well, from home, I still can't stream. The internet connection's not good enough. I'm still trying to actually look for. Well, we are still trying to look for options to get a better internet connection. We have been through many options, but none of them really work too well. So I don't know. It's a bit hard, but we have. We are planning that I would go to the NSS office, maybe do some stream there, like monthly streams or something. But with the corona coming out, we couldn't really go to Helsinki or anything, so that plan didn't come true. But maybe soon in the future, there's gonna be some streams, not from home, but somewhere else. And eventually, if we get a better internet, maybe I can stream from home as well.
Awesome.
But future-wise, just right now it's only TSL5, nothing else coming up.
TSL 5, I think everybody's hyped for it. Brackets just got announced just the other day, actually, so everyone should check that out. Can catch Serral there. No plans for other online tournaments until we come on ESL, come on Blizzard time, you know, everyone's in isolation. Announce some big tournaments. Give us something for the big dogs to play in. So I'm hoping we get more big online cups soon.
I'm probably playing some online cups soon, but not too many, but some.
All right. Hopefully see you slide in and grab one of those Big Gabe weeklies, the EU EPT weekly, man. Big Gabe's winning way too many of those. We need to see.
Did he win the last one as well?
Did
he win the last one?
I don't think he won the last one, but he's won more than anybody else.
Yeah, he has for sure. I thought Raynor was taking the throne for a moment, but then he stopped. Raynor is playing them right now, I think, but he was like 4-win streak at the very start.
Yeah, he was doing very good as well. I don't know. I think everyone's schedule's kind of all over the place right now. Obviously, Raynor was very busy as well, playing like Zelnaga's finest and stuff, being the final boss. But
there's other online stuff. If you want to play in all of them, it's gonna be a mess. You need to schedule a bit what you want to play.
It's I mean, the old days we used to have people who were trying to play Go for SE2 and what was the other tournament series called? They were playing 2 tournaments at the same time constantly, and then you'd see which one you got deeper in, and you'd forfeit the other one at some point because you're holding the bracket up. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, dude. Obviously, big thanks to Ence Esports, who actually retweeted our live post today as well, which is great. Good to see them supporting you. I've enjoyed hearing from more and more Finnish fans over the last 2 years. I'd never really talked to any Finnish fans, so I think that's your influence. I've had a few come contact me for coaching. I've met some at events cheering for you and some other players. But thank you so much for coming on and chatting. And you know, who knows, maybe later this year, next year, we can get you back on for another show. Hopefully things go back to normal soon. Any shout outs or last words for the fans?
Well, just shout out to all the fans and thanks for watching. It's gonna be on YouTube as well for everyone who didn't actually watch it now. So I don't know, just thanks for watching and thanks for you for organizing it.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything. So, of course, guys, it is up in podcast format as well. If you're watching on YouTube or watching live right now on Twitch, links, of course, are down below in the description. And that will be up about 24 hours after the live broadcast every single week. Thank you very much for joining me, Serral. Thank you, everybody, for watching with us. Have a good one. We'll catch you guys next time.